As soon as we get Frank to sit down. You didn't hear me. That joke kind of goes, when no one can hear you. It's no fun to make someone behind their back. It's only good if he listens, right, Frank? What? Yeah. That's what I thought. All right. So we're going to speed up a little bit through Isaiah. I never meant to slow down as much as some cool things. I like to jump in, but I want to get to some other studies that I have coming up. So what we're going to do over the next couple weeks is we are going to kind of summarize, give some main points. I am working on a compiled notes to hand out for you guys, like a reading guide. I kind of gave one for chapters 1 through 39. I'm not quite done because chapter 60 through 66, if you've ever read it, has me, I read part of it and I'm like, I just don't want to read anymore. It's a lot of, same stuff over and over and over again. But I do want us to kind of back up before we get into this stuff, and I want us to read the end of Isaiah 35, because this is the major, we call this a hinge point, pointing us towards the rest of the book, and we've kind of looked at that. But someone read Isaiah 35, 8 through 10. And I have microphones. Who'd like to read it? Tom? Here, Tom. It's in the Old Testament. Isaiah 35, 8 through 10.
Hold on. Somebody else have it.
Oh,
Fred's got it.
Fred's got it.
35, 8 through 10. And an highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for those, the wayfaring men, though fools shall not err therein. No lion shall be there, nor any ravenous beast shall go up thereupon. It shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return, and come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away.
So this is the ultimate goal of what Isaiah's kind of been pushing us for. The true way of holiness is to be able to walk with God, unhindered, right? Unhindered by enemies, unhindered by nature, unhindered by creation itself, unhindered by, lazy and fools. But the redeemed people are going to walk with God. And that's so important because all the way back in Genesis, what do we have? We have Adam and Eve walking with God. And, you get these little snippets throughout Scripture, of people who walked with God. And the ultimate goal that we are looking for, right, out of everything is we want to be with Him. We want to be with the Father. That's the way of holiness. Holiness is not a means to make society better. Okay? Holiness is not a means to make your family better. Holiness is not a means to make your local churches better. Holiness is a means to walk with God, which will do what? Make your churches better, make your families better, make the world better, because one of the things we're teaching in the college age class we're going through is that God, Proverbs 3 says that He made the world in wisdom. He made the world to be able to live in it in such a way that when God asks us to do something or act a certain way, behave a certain way, He knows we can do it because He created the world for it to sustain itself. He created the world for it to be in this type of environment. So this way of holiness, which, by the way, is a term that has become shorthand in Jewish literature in between the Testaments, between the Old Testament and New Testament, it becomes the way. The way. Well, in the New Testament, as you get there, they adopt that phrase And the way becomes a synonym for what? The church, right? The church ought to be a place where people feel like they walk with God, okay? And so, you kind of get to escape the world. And as we looked at last week, all the way back to chapter 32, kind of starts this, behold, a king will reign in righteousness. So under the umbrella of this righteous king is where this way of holiness comes in. Now, Isaiah is writing to Jews, so they are expecting this to happen, right? They are expecting this to happen because he is speaking about current events, Assyrian captivity. Babylon's not yet there. Assyria is still the major player in Isaiah 35. We're about to have some prophecy of Babylon. So there's going to be a king that is going to keep Judah from going through the same downfall as the 10 northern tribes, right? Well, that king is Hezekiah. That righteous king is Hezekiah. So in chapters 36 through 39, we have the story of Hezekiah where Assyria has come to the gates. And Hezekiah prays, and God sends the army away, and they're saved. Right? They're saved. And everybody praises Hezekiah. Right? And there's this whole... I really wanted to read that whole narrative, but I'm going to save you guys from that. You guys go read it, because it's a really interesting thing of how they try to taunt Hezekiah. They try to taunt him in basically trying to say, oh yeah, your God's going to save you? You really think your God's going to save you? You really think your wise men are wiser than our wise men? You think your God's bigger than our God? Right? There's a lot of taunting that goes on. Okay? And so they come to the wall, and there's all these men on the wall, and they're basically saying all these taunts in front of the men who are standing guard. And the men who are standing guard are doing what? They're freaking out. Yeah, and they're speaking in their own language, which is why, the prophet's like, no. Hey, let's talk in the common tongue. Let's talk in the trade tongue. And like, no, we want them to hear it, and we want fear to arise, right? And so what Hezekiah does is, obviously, I'm kind of shorthanding this real quick, but he prays, God saves him, redeems him, right? Assyria is pushed back. And then we've talked about this before, then the Babylonians send an entourage, and Hezekiah does exactly what? Brings them in the temple, shows them all the gold, shows them everything in there, and Isaiah says, this is going to be your downfall. Wait a minute. We thought Hezekiah was that king of righteousness, who would bring in the way of holiness, who would bring in this new Jerusalem, this new Zion. What we realize is that there is no king born of man alone that can do it. There'll be periods of it. There'll be glimpses of it. You might have a good king, then you have a bad king, right? You kind of go through the kings, a good king, bad king. But even in the reign of one king, that one king can have good moments and bad moments. And so what the rest of the book is going to be pointing us towards is we're not going to be dependent on an earthly king. We're not going to be dependent on a king that's going to come specifically from Jerusalem. It must be God. It must be God. But this God king who can mock idols, who can completely destroy foreign gods, also seems to be a servant. Which, if you know anything about ancient Near Eastern culture, or any culture really, are gods servants? Are gods, do they serve or do they be served? Right? Which is the whole upside down paradigm that Jesus comes. In one sermon, he's claiming to be the I am. And they're going, blasphemy. And then the next, he's showing, the Son of Man did not come to serve, but to be served. And so he's living out what this righteous, suffering servant would be. Okay? So let's jump And I'm going to kind of give you guys a little bit of a flow outline. That may not look like a flow outline to you, but it looks like a flow outline to me. I kind of start here and do this, okay? So just bear with me. It helps me. But Isaiah 40, he is speaking to people who are in Babylon. Now, Isaiah is not in Babylon. Why? He's speaking a century before it ever happens. Isaiah never sees the Babylonian captivity. He speaks about it, and he leaves words for those who are in captivity to remember what Isaiah said. But Isaiah never saw the Babylonian captivity. He's about to talk about and name Cyrus. Cyrus isn't even born yet. Isaiah is about to name a king, a Persian king, who's going to come and is going to rescue Israel. Babylon's not even a threat yet. Does that like kind of sit in for a moment? Babylon's not even a threat, and he's prophesying about 3 kingdoms down the road, or 2 more kingdoms down the road. Assyria is the kingdom. He's already saying they're going to be gone. Babylon's going to be on the rise, and he predicts the downfall of Babylon, and then he predicts that Persia, a Persian king, is going to be the king that rescues God's people. Do you know why scholars who don't believe in God try to figure out, well, when was Isaiah written? Well, it couldn't have been written during Isaiah's time. Why? He should not know these things. He should not, and by name, that must be a latter edition. Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way, really helped us out with that. Really gave us documentation that predates and shows that no, these things were being prophesied, especially the book of Daniel, were being prophesied and can date before these events ever happened. All right, so this prophecy is pretty cool. But, so he's going to talk about, so when you're reading Isaiah 40, you've got to understand, Isaiah is talking to people who are in captivity. They're not in captivity yet, but he's writing a book for when they are. And it will be a couple generations later, right? Not even the generations that he's writing to. It'd be like me saying, I'm preaching a sermon today and it's to your great-great-great-grandkids. But I want you to preserve it because God told me something's coming. I want you to preserve it, and I want you to pass these stories down, right? And I want you to pass these messages down from generation to generation to generation, because one day, one of your generations is going to use this. Okay? Now, there's a part, and well, that's going to get into some scholarly stuff. I don't want to go there. One of the major things in this section is that there is no other God. Okay? And this is in comparison to the foreign idols. This is where you're going to get a lot of making fun of idols in this section, right? You take some wood, right? You cut it up, you dress it up, you worship it. Or you take a stone, right? And you ask, hey, stone, what's going to happen in the future, right? How are we going to be saved? And you put your ear up to the stone, and what do you hear? Nothing, right? Mute or dumb idols, right? And they're going to be put on trial. Isaiah's going to put these stones on trial and said, I'm going to go to court with your stones. It's just a funny scene to me. But the comfort comes, why is God going to save them? Covenant. God made a promise. And he wants them to remember when they're in Babylon, why are they in Babylon? Why are they there? Their own sin, right? Why are they going to be saved? Not because of their righteousness. Not because of their goodness. Because of the covenant. And the righteous will be the ones who hear, right? Who will hear and return. Because if you remember, does everybody return back to Israel? No. And there are several waves of it. Right? Even when you get the time of Nehemiah, which is about 400, 440, right? Which is, 100-some years after they return, he's still over in Babylon. So not all of them are going to return. Cyrus is named. Idols are challenged. In the next section, we're going to have the suffering servant theme. There's a servant who's coming. He's going to suffer, but his suffering is going to bring what? Atonement. But this atonement is going to be, for the first time, salvation freely offered. He's going to talk about, you're not going to be able to buy this with a lamb. You're not going to be able to buy this with a tithe. You're not going to be able to purchase this with any kind of gold or silver or things that they normally would have been, accustomed to. Hey, if you sin, what did you have to do? You had to make a sacrifice. It had to cost you something. It's not going to cost you. It will cost, but it won't cost you. It's going to cost who? That suffering servant. So after this suffering servant restores and brings atonement, only then can Zion be restored. The final restoration of Zion, the New Jerusalem, is going to be after the moment of the suffering servant paying for the sins of the people. And that's why, right, in Acts chapter 1, what do the apostles ask Jesus? Is it at this time? Hey, you've died. There's been atonement made. You've been back. Is it at this time that you will restore the kingdom to Jerusalem? They're starting to put some of the pieces together. All right? And so that restored Zion does not happen until after Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection, and ascension as well. But in this new Zion, there's going to be no peace for the wicked. There's no peace for the wicked. Now, explain this to me. If God's going to bring a kingdom, He's going to offer salvation freely, right? Freely. You don't have to do it. You don't have to pay anything for it. What separates those who have peace and those who are not? Wait a minute. Isn't everybody wicked? That's kind of the theme of Isaiah, is that everybody's wicked. So, and here's where the Jews would go. Well, peace is only for the children of Abraham. Because there can be only really one distinction. If we're all wicked and we're all sinners, there's only one distinction between, the righteous and the unrighteous. Well, we've been given the covenant. We've been given the covenant. You have not. That is why when Jesus comes on the scene, what does He have to deal with? He has to deal with the law, the prophets, and the covenant in some way, extending the covenant outside of the law of Moses. Which, by the way, when you go back to Abraham and you go back to Genesis chapter 3, that covenant is universal, right? The covenant to Adam and Eve is universal, and even the covenant to Abraham is universal. I will bless those who bless you. Yes, I will make your seed like the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore, right? But I will also bless those who bless you, and that's a part of we will bring other people into the covenant. And hasn't that been a part of the story anyway so far? How many non-Jews are a part of the Jewish story? A lot. A lot. And they get ages. You know how much history of Jews we don't have in this? How many gaps in history we have? And yet we'll spend 3, 4, 5 whole chapters. And if you think about writing out a scroll and how much money that would cost just to get one scroll out to write about Rahab and write about Ruth and write about Tamar, right? We're costing ink here. We're costing a lot of dollars to talk about non-Israelites. Yeah, God wants them in the story. Why? Because what we're going to see is that this true restoration is only for the righteous. Now, the righteous are those who trust in God's covenant and His promise. Okay? And that is where Romans 2 comes in, right? That circumcision was never a circumcision of the flesh, it was always a circumcision of the heart. Okay? True worship, that's what we really want to know. What's true worship? Justice, mercy, and humility. True worship that God is going to be asking for. He's not going to be asking for all the things He used to, right? There's not going to be all the temple practices, temple sacrifices. Justice, mercy, and humility. Okay? And then finally, it's going to end with this new heaven and new earth. There's going to be a restored system or way or environment that God is going to dwell with the righteous, that is going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Okay? And it's going to use a lot of different images. Okay? It'll use temple images. It will use city images. It will use garden images. Well, which one is it? Is it a city? Is it a garden? Is it a temple? What do all those represent? City, garden, and temple. Place where you can walk with God. Which gets us all the way back to what we just read in the end of 35. The way of holiness is getting us to walk with God. And the only way that can be done is the Genesis 3:15 promise must be fulfilled. The seed of woman must come and crush the head of Satan. But in doing so, he must be bruised. So the gospel is being played out in the end of Isaiah. It's the gospel story as you see it. Okay? So let's go to Isaiah 40. And we're going to read some passages. And I meant to print this out. And I don't know why I didn't, but I have this whole printout for you guys. I would like somebody to read verses Isaiah 40, 1 through 5.
Comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins.
All right, pause real quick right there. So remember, these are being written to which people? Which group of people? People in captivity. Okay? Comfort my people. Right? That's what they're going to need. They're in exile. They need comfort. Her warfare is ended. Her iniquity is pardoned. She has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. The most freeing and hopeful thing a person can hear is, you have been pardoned. Right? You have been pardoned. Your sins, it's not saying you are not guilty. Pardoning someone and someone being not guilty are not the same thing necessarily, is it? Pardoning, the reason you have to pardon someone is because they've been what? Accused and sentenced for a something. So a pardon is a releasing of debt. And that is the comfort that Israel needs to understand, is that you guys have lived these 70 years because of your sin, but all of that guilt you are being pardoned for, and in return, you are going to get back double. There's that double portion aspect that comes into the Old Testament. What was the purpose of a double portion? Well, make something right. Who usually got the double portion? Firstborn, which brings us into the firstborn principle, right? Firstborn, why did they receive a double portion? Was it just because, hey, we like them better, or they're the oldest? Huh? Open the womb, okay. What was their responsibility? They became the new patriarch of the family, right? And the reason they received a double portion is because if they ever needed to become a kinsman redeemer or to buy someone back or to buy something back, they had more than enough where they could bless others. It wasn't about they became richer than everybody else. That's what they took it and became. It wasn't supposed to be that way. The reason why Abraham received the double portion is because when Lot needed him to go rescue him, he had the means and the men to go do it. Right? When someone needed to be bought back, like Tamar, that's the whole point of the Judah and Tamar story. Right? Tamar needed to be redeemed. And Judah refused to do the right thing. And so she disguised herself, right? Did some unrighteous acts. And yet Judah says, you're more righteous than I. It's a responsibility thing. And so we receive that. And a part of the responsibility for Israel is they are supposed to be a light unto the nations, the world. Yeah. All right, go ahead, Tom.
A voice cries, in the wilderness prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley should be lifted up, and every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken.
You ever heard that passage before? There's a voice in the wilderness. John the Baptist, right? So there's going to be some preparatory work that has to happen, okay? There's going to be some preparatory work, but even then, the whole point is he's going to make it straight. What is he going to do? To the hills? What is he going to do to the valleys? What's he going to do to the road? The point is, it's going to be laid out for you. It's not going to be a treacherous journey to salvation. Now, this is playing off the pilgrimage idea. What were Jews supposed to do 3 times a year, at least 3 times a year? All the festivals. You ever gone to the Middle East or seen pictures of the Middle East? Is it a flat, easy journey? No. So imagine their pilgrimage every year. Oh, it's a burden. But imagine if there was just, it's kind of like in Tennessee, right? If you didn't have a vehicle, it'd be pretty hard to kind of get up some of these mountains. Someone just straightened, flattened everything. You just had to walk right here, and there was no turns, no nothing. God's going to make the path that easy for them, okay? And when they see it, hopefully they will know. All right, so somebody else read 6 through 8. Here's the second voice.
The voice said, cry out. And he said, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all its loveliness is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, because the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flowers fade, but the word of God stands forever. How far?
Right there. So interestingly enough, a part of this whole journey is and this may be true in your life as well, as you're trying to listen to the voice of God, what other voices can you hear at the same time? Right? There's all these voices. What are going to happen to the voices that you hear here on this earth? What do? Like grass, they're going to do what? Shrivel up and die. They're here for a moment and gone. Who is the one character out of the whole story who has endured and will endure from beginning to end? Whose word are you going to listen to? Peter, by the way, quotes this in 1 Peter chapter 1 when he's talking about how you have not been bought with gold or silver or precious things, but that of the precious blood of Christ, right? For you obeyed from the heart, right? And because you obeyed the voice of the Lord, right? The voice of men is like grass. It withers, it goes, it's here, it's there. But the voice of the God endures forever. And so really, if this process is going to work, who do they need to start trusting in again? God, and not all the other voices, right? All right, so someone else read, and we're just going to read a couple of verses in chapter 40. Someone read 9 through 11.
Go on up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good news. Lift up your voice with strength. O Jerusalem, herald of good news. Lift up, fear not. Say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Behold, the Lord God comes with might, and his arm rules for him. Behold, his reward is with him, and his recompense before him. He will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead those that are young.
So when salvation comes, which is easy, the way is made, everything's laid low, you're able to walk with God, what is our duty? What is the duty of this righteous and this way of righteousness? Which is kind of interesting, because all the mountains have been what? Made low, but where does he tell you to go? To the top of the mountains and do what? Shout. Proclaim the name of the Lord. Proclaim the Good Shepherd. Proclaim what God has done in this city. Why? Why are we proclaiming it? We want others to come. It's easy. You're welcome. Come in. All right? And so this is one of those concepts that gets developed over and over and over again. This is where the prophets really start to switch about this. You know, we've seen it before, Gentiles being added in, but they're kind of sparse here and there. They have to kind of be a major player, you know, kind of like a Tamar, like a, Ruth. Now it's invite everybody. Invite everybody. Go to the mountaintops and shout. Which, when you get into the time of Jesus, what are some parables that he talks about inviting? It's like a wedding feast. Who does he first invite? Those who are invited. What do the invited do? They don't show up. Excuses. Right? They've got other things to do. And so what does he tell the steward to do? You go hand out this invitation, everybody and anybody, any passerby. You tell them about this wedding feast. And anybody who shows up, what is God going to do? He's going to clothe them in white. He's going to purify them. Okay? So this becomes an open invite to all. But one of the things they need to learn, look at chapter 41. Someone read 41, 21 through 29. This is always a fun section here. Are you in 41?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was in 40. 41.
I mean, that's a good section too.
21?
41, 21 through 29.
Okay, sorry. Submit your case, says the Lord. Present your arguments, says Jacob's king. Let them come and tell us what will happen. Tell us the past events so that we may reflect on them and know the outcome. Or tell us the future. Tell us the coming events that we will know that you are God's. Indeed, do something, good or bad. Then we will be in awe and perceive.
Let me stop right there for a moment. Okay. He's inviting all these gods to come and share their proofs. Come into court, bring all your proof, bring everything you got to prove that your gods do something. Tell them even to say something that happened in the past. Bring your idol and have them speak just about something that's already happened. Tell us about the former things. Can they? Maybe just something that's going to happen in the future. And then he finally says, declare to them to do something. Will they even move on their own? They won't. And so what he's doing is he's showing the foolishness of this idol worship that they've gotten in. And they realize, when you go and you look at this statue does nothing. Says nothing, moves nothing, declares nothing. But through Isaiah, what is God doing? Not only is he telling about former things, not only is he telling about things that are happening, but especially for this people in Babylon, if they're reading this message, they know Isaiah spoke about this how many years ago? Over 100 years ago. And he's going to name kings. He's going to name events. He's going to tell them where they're going to be and when it's going to end. He says, just find one other god or one other idol that will do that for you. They can't. Keep reading.
Look, you who are nothing, and your work is worthless. Anyone who chooses you is detestable. I have raised up one from the north, and he has come, one from the east who invokes my name. He will march over rulers as if they were mud, like a potter who treads the clay. Who told about this from the beginning, so that we might know, and from times past, so that we might say, he is right? No one announced it. No one told it. No one heard your words. I was the first to say to Zion, look, here they are. And I gave a herald of good news to Jerusalem. When I look, there is no one. There is no counselor among them. When I ask them, they have nothing to say. Look, all of them are a delusion. Their works are non-existent. Their images are wind and emptiness.
So who counsels God? Who counsels God? Nobody. God's not looking from beings before him, right, that came before him that he's working off their work. Who from the beginning has always been the one declaring things? It's been God. And if you're an Israelite, you know that, right? You have all the prophets. You have all these people who have spoken. You've got Moses. You've got Abraham. You've got the story, right, of Adam and Eve. Our God works. Our God moves. Our God speaks, and things happen. He goes, every time I go, he's making a mockery. He goes, I even turn around and I ask him, hey, what are we going to do? What do they say? Nothing. Paul uses this in 1 Corinthians. He calls them mute, or the Greek word, dumb idols. They're mute. They don't speak. They don't say anything. Okay? There is none like God that moves and behaves in the way that he does. And so, in chapter 44, and I'm going to read this real quick. Look at verse 9. All who fashion idols are nothing, and the things they delight in do not profit. Can you imagine the person who actually makes the idol? Imagine being the person who makes from the wood or from the stone the thing that everybody else worships. To me, that's one of the most evil and wicked positions to be in. Especially as an Israelite, being a crafter of the idols that Israel is worshiping. Who knows that that image was created and is not self-sustaining and is not something that has been here from the beginning, and imagine being that first craftsman who's like, what does this God look like? Where is he getting his information from? He's creating it. And everybody else is going, whoa, look at this God. But imagine being the person who formed it, who said, I'm going to put his ears here, and here's what his hair is going to look like. Here's what he's going to wear. A God made in his own what? In his image of what he designs. And he says, those who fashion it, they're nothing. And that Hebrew word, by the way, is not like, oh, he's nothing. He ought to be nothing, like non-existent. Disappear from the face of the earth. These people who do this. He says, who fashions a god and casts an idol that is profitable for nothing. Behold, all his companions shall be put to shame, and the craftsmen are only human. Let them all assemble, let them stand forth. They shall be terrified, and they shall be put to shame together. The ironsmith takes a cutting tool and works it over the coals. He fashions it with hammers and works it with his strong arm. He becomes hungry, and his strength fails. He drinks water and is faint. The man who's fashioning the idols, is he like this superhuman? He's just as weak and frail and as fragile as everybody else. And he creates this thing and everybody goes, wow. And they're in awe and they believe it's this great thing. It's nothing. It's nothing. Right? And he goes on to just mock this whole process. The whole process, just think about it, idols, the whole process is foolishness, isn't it? It's foolishness. I think there are some famous painters who have gone on, who if they knew what their works now, how people, what? I made that in like 25 minutes in my basement, right? And I threw some paint on some of those from Picasso, I'm going, I don't think they're that good. They're kind of abstract, and people they'll pay $1 million for it. But during Picasso's day, he couldn't sell it for 2 pennies. But that's the way things work, okay? And it just becomes foolishness. We end up idolizing the creation rather than who? The Creator. What about the one who made the wood, who made the stone, who made these things? He is the one who ought to be worshiped. All right, so we're going to pick up there. We're going to read probably one more set of passages down here to talk about Cyrus and kind of move on. And I've got a couple different classes. Next week, I'm going to come with a couple different options of what we want our next class to be. And I'm going to let you guys pick what we teach.